Disclaimer, this was a tough year to choose for a multitude of reasons, and I didn't get to see as many films as I wanted to. As always, my Fave 5 list is just the movies most important to me this year, which does not necessarily mean that they were the best films, just my favorite ones. By all means, share your favorites in the comments and bloviate recklessly until your heart is effulgent. Natch.
Full disclosure, I haven't seen 1, Moonlight, or 2, Manchester by the Sea because A, I'm sorry, and B, my instinct upon seeing Casey Affleck is just to dive into the nearest ocean, regardless of distance. So this is just my films from my singular and limited perspective on the year as a whole. As with last year, I have some honorable mentions. I just don't have as much to say about these right now, but they're films that are absolutely worth discussing in the future. Like last year, I put Creed on the honorable mentions, but I now realize I have a full episode of Creed in the tank to do, so being an honorable mention isn't a denigration of quality. It's just, let me think about you more. Okay, all of you, bye-bye. Honorable mentions. Zootopia. Kids' movies this good don't come around all that often. We need to celebrate the victories because this movie manages to get children thinking critically about basic human rights and how crappy shit garbage people manipulate race to engender fear and incite violence as a means to their own end. Probably relevant. Disney. More of this. Be brave. Stay on the edge. We, the audience, will reward you forever. The Nice Guys. Shane Black is basically playing it safe and putting out the best screenplay of the year. Stakes are small, characters are flawed beyond belief, shitty people over shittier people. It's effortless, beautiful, sarcastic, and morally ambiguous. You know, a Shane Black film. And it all takes place at Christmas, obviously.
But did you know?
Shane Black films take place at Christmas because of the film 3 Days of the Condor. He noticed that because it took place at Christmas, it left all these little stunning character touches that other times of the year wouldn't give you. Christmas also brings with it a sense of hope that instinctively plays against good characters as bad things happen around them. It also opens up clever ways for protagonists to dispose of villains they wouldn't normally have. You know, like flying up some Christmas lights to blow away your ex-boyfriend. Like that. The Neon Demon. What a thing, right? What a weird, probably good thing. Pro tip, don't be eating when you watch this movie. Rogue One. It's very good. I don't have much more to say about it right now. It's a tone piece. They nailed the tone. Mads Mikkelsen is Darth Dad. It works. Okay, now for the actual list. Holy shit, this movie. I was speechless walking out of it. I'm not even sure I'm not speechless now and simply proactively gumming together consonantal noises escaping entirely on the backs of wings of some very lost doves. I have so many things I know that I want to say about this movie, and I also know that I don't yet know what all of them are, because this movie needs some time and some room to just sit with you, the audience. And an open mind helps a lot because this movie pushed some buttons that I wasn't really ready for a mainstream science fiction film to push. Denis Villeneuve, as far as I'm concerned, is the signature at the bottom of a blank check. Arrival, Sicario, Enemy, Prisoners. If you give this man a movie, as of right now, he will hit that movie out of the ballpark and then sail over the sun on the wings of the dove that came out of my mouth in the previous joke. Oh, and the next film on his slate is Blade Runner, and after that, dude's rebooting Dune. God, if only he were directing episode 9 instead of Colin Trevorrow. He could have become our new god. And Arrival was written by criminally underappreciated Eric Heiser, who looks at characters in a refreshingly interesting way. I mean, don't take my word for it.
I guess what drew me to Ted Chiang's story, the compelling character of Louise Banks. She had a tenderness about her, but also a confidence of her own opinion and of her own intelligence. In a way, she reminded me of my wife. And honestly, I think it's probably why I fell in love with the story so much. It was a big deal for me to center a story around a woman who could help change the world through personal moral choices.
I'm going to break down this movie in really abstract terms, so please bear with me. If you were around my age, like between 10 and 13 when Independence Day came out, you saw a slobbering legend unfold in front of your eyes. It was funny, it was scary, it had drama, it had Jeff Goldblum crushing. It had Bill Pullman giving a speech on par with Rudy in it. It made me feel every emotion when I was a kid. Now suppose that hypothetical kid is now 34. This movie is that feeling again. It fires every synapse in your pleasantly sized brain like a bottle rocket smoking a cigarette. Shut up, I know that metaphor sucks. And it does all of the things you secretly hoped that Independence Day Resurgencer not only didn't do, it seemed to completely misunderstand even the simplest things about the original film. Seriously, ID42 is a train wreck tumbling through a tsunami. It's not even so bad it's good, it's just so bad you feel dead. Back to Arrival. I think really good science fiction has this way of making you begin to, in real time, question the basis of your morality. Just me? Okay. I also think that really good science fiction has a way of condensing large-scale stakes and consequences into entirely relatable microcosms of the larger story. So you then relate to the story against the basis of your own morality.
Well, that's how the good movies get you.
This movie goes Pixar's up in the first 10 minutes and you're just like, why? But later is when you realize that the movie has successfully pulled your heart halfway out of your body and will spend the rest of the film excruciatingly getting it the rest of the way out of your ribcage. Prepare to have your soul ripped out of your body, only to watch humanity's understanding of morality go right down the shitter. Wait for a full episode for tons of more thoughts on this movie because I am absolutely committed to breaking this film down in 2017. And I'm pretty hamstringed by spoilers here because anything I actually wanted to say about this pretty much gives away the movie. So I'm not going to do that until the full episode. If you haven't seen this, you have a new top priority. Leave your kids at school, I don't care. I think this is a movie everyone could experience because it gives you a pragmatic distance to observe problems and solutions from. Because think about it. A lot of people wish that they could make contact with aliens, but the reality is that contact with an intelligent species of extraterrestrial origin would bankrupt every closely held human ideal about morality, and we'd essentially have to start from zero. Let me illustrate. Purely hypothetically, so let's all keep our pants on for a few more moments, if an alien species contacted us and then told us that God doesn't exist, what's your next move? Motherfucker just flew across the universe and you're going to tell him you know something he doesn't? You're going to tell him no? Let me know how that works out for you. Louise is our window into this world, and by the end of it, her ideas about family, love, life, and even a chronological understanding of time go out the window. I hope Amy Adams wins an Oscar for this movie because she's not acting in the normal box that an actor is expected to perform from. In any given scene, she is portraying emotions we didn't even know existed and we've never actually had to try and comprehend them before. This movie is so huge I can't wait to talk about it more in a full episode in the coming months. Moving on. I honestly did not know what to expect from this going in. It was written and directed by Taika Waititi, and his previous film, What We Do in the Shadows, despite wild critical acclaim, just didn't grab me. But I think that was more that I was just so very, very over vampires in film at the time, so it misses for me because of the subject matter more than the execution, which is fantastic, and it was very funny. It just didn't connect with me like this connected with me. This has heart. Also, he did Eagle vs. Shark, which was fun. But Hunt for the Wilder People is quite different. It's unlike anything I've ever seen, especially executed with the surprisingly wild swings in tone that the film employs. At times, it seems to hold you hostage. Like, there is some real shit in this movie. Stuff you will not forget days after, weeks after. It crawled into my head enough that I was still thinking about it much later when I made this list. Sam Neill is on some whole other level of curmudgeon-y cranko in this film, but he never resorts to caricature, always making someone that we can believe in amidst all of the absolute madness happening around the character. But it's also this storybook like Roald Dahl-esque picture book of extremist whimsies and cartoonish bananarizing. Don't think about it. You have the cartoonish villain with literally a single dimension, but at the same time feels real world enough because of her job that the story never leaves reality too far behind. This is one I wouldn't even watch the trailer for if you haven't seen it. Just go rent it. It's $4 and you will get a truly memorable film experience. It's a really fun, great adventure film that has just the darn tootiness message about family and how sometimes you gotta make your own because the one you used to have got broken.
That's how the good movies get you.
It's a wonderfully hilarious, comically absurd, aching, melancholy thing. Everyone should watch it. Kids, adults, parents, grandparents, banana phones, probably pastors, various sponges, cake pans no larger than 12 inches in diameter, and anyone who's ever looked up at the stars from behind a row of bars. Shorty's gotta eat, but you can't feed the stars from afar because behind your scars of misspent wars. It's not a haiku, but it's yours. If you saw the film, that made sense. There's like a poetry, haiku, hip-hop thing. F it. Next up, I gotta talk about how this was the year of the musical. One musical in particular went back in time to a more classical Hollywood age, celebrating the life of cinema through the eyes and ears of a time period. I am, of course, talking about... I mean, La La Land is awesome and it's on the list. It's just that Sing Street sang to my heart, muscles, guts and stuff. Boy noises. That's not a thing a human person would say, Michael. Sing Street is a great, tiny slice of life in Ireland in the 1980s that just happens to be a musical. In the same sense, the word that once is a musical, and once not so quietly reserves a spot in my heart for a film that just punched my heart in the dick and made goop water come out of my eye holes. Whoever's doing the scripts, we need to have a talk later. The director of both Once and Sing Street is John Carney, and he now occupies a spot in my heart with 2 movies because Sing Street is just the right amount of sugary. It's like eating the best cotton candy on planet Earth while listening to the melancholy, dulcet tones of The Cure in the rain on a pier where you had a regrettable breakup, overlooking a lake you almost drowned as a kid on a Friday in the winter of a leap year. Yeah, it feels like that. It's just a perfect capture of a moment, and that moment happens to be a time period dominated by The Cure, Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, bona fide kick-ass 80s music that holds up as strongly now as it did then. So in a way, it's a movie about a band you've never heard of that never made it anywhere, that maybe made some music inspired by those people. Well, it's pretty rad. I mean, with a movie like this, if the new music isn't great, you don't have much of a movie, and they absolutely nailed it. It's a great soundtrack just to have if you've ever listened to Pictures of You and thought deeply about a person you cared about.
Oh, that's how the good movies get you.
We love to look at the 1980s as an ironic time, useful in comedies and hot tub time machines, but there's another layer there that filmmakers don't generally try to capture. It uses the cheesiest musical time period in modern memory and sells you melancholy and longing. Part of the reason 80s fashions got so bananas was youth movements deciding not to conform to the gee-whiz pomade-laden glossy artifice of the nuclear family during the Reagan administration. I mean, one of the things you have to remember about the 1980s is that these kids were trying to embarrass their parents. The extremity and the experimental nature of the time period was a direct reaction to the stuffiness. I've never seen a movie capture that feeling before. Shit, I started questioning if our view of the 1980s was totally distorted by the very people these kids were fighting against, at least in the long term. This is an arrow through the heart of the idea that the 80s were devoid of warmth and emotion and value and depth if you can look past the ghost pale visions of pop singers all competing to dress exclusively out of the closet of Molly Ringwald. But I digress. Sometimes the best way to fight oppression is by making your hair look stupid on purpose, because that's something that simply wasn't allowed within the existing system. Part of the 1980s was teenagers looking pretty stupid because that was the way to fight the system, and this movie made me get that in a way that I didn't when I was a kid in the 80s, and that's awesome. Go watch this movie right now. It's on Netflix. But if you like cars and travel up, I'm so sorry that just came out. I'll never do it again.
One Direction's Perfect is now canonically retired within the narrative of this film show. 2017 needs a new song. One Direction, we need you to reunite, like now.
Next up, I really feel like this was the movie where Bad Robot found a groove that no film company has pulled off in decades, being a B-movie powerhouse. I mean, this is a B movie, right? It's a small production with some recognizable acting talent pushing a single premise that engages an audience so directly that they don't mind the smaller budget. For a moment, one of this thing, you are glued to Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and this film might as well have written the word story on a poster board for all that the prologue gave you, and that's the point. This movie is a mystery operating on like a billion D levels, both in the movie's cinematic world and out of it. I mean, we were all like, hey, whoa, wait, we're getting a new Cloverfield movie? And then once the movie started, it was like, is this in the Cloverfield universe? Who is this? What year do you live? Jesus Christ, what is happening to this? Seriously, bro. I can't tell if this is connected to the Cloverfield universe. Is that Jim from the newsroom? Is John Goodman putting in the performance of a lifetime? Is this shit for real? How did they manage to keep any of this? Holy shit, is this what movies used to be like before trailers ruined? Wait, does that mean JJ's Mystery Box has a real world value because it fights against a very real problem of movies being unable to surprise us anymore? Cough, you don't lift. This movie is Machine Gun Bananas. Directed by first-timer Dan Trachtenberg, it's Perfect. If this is round 1, holy shit, I want to be around for whatever round 3 is because it's going to be a masterpiece. So go ahead and plant that stake in the ground. Trachtenberg's third film is going to be the one that blows all of our minds. Like when Rian Johnson made Looper, which was so good he's now batting second behind The Jage on episode 8. Back to Cloverfield, this movie is the perfect metaphor for the non-standard family unit. You know, stepdad, stepson, stepsister. This movie is an off-putting, awkward family drama from start to finish, but that's just the drama that holds the rest of the bonkers-ass movie together. But it's also the perfect Die Hard movie because it pulls off the whole barefoot for a reason thing because my girl Winstead jumps over skin-melting acid and shit. This movie actually meant something to genre filmmaking. Who would have thought this would work? Who really thought a movie with Cloverfield in the title would even work 8 years after the original? No one knew anything about it. How many movies can you even say that about? They announced the title on January 15th, 2016, and it was released on March 10th. That's 2 months. And that was the point. This was a surprise on every level, and I think it's underappreciated for what they managed to pull off. This is a movie. Anyone can watch this. Anyone can love this. And can we take a special moment for the criminally underrated Mary Elizabeth Winstead? She delivers every single time. I was gonna make a joke about rebooting Die Hard with her in the lead before I remembered that she's actually in 2 Die Hard films and was wasted both times. But hey, at least Jai Courtney's still getting work, right? That's a toothless lamb, by the way. I was actually super elated with his performance in Suicide Squad because he seemed to be about the only person actually having fun in that film. I have a strong desire to do a full episode on this later as well. I still have a lot to say about this film. If you haven't seen 10 Cloverfield Lane and still don't know anything about it, watch it. Now, it escalates stakes like you cannot possibly imagine. And I hope the Cloverfield franchise continues to be a vehicle to highlight up-and-coming talent like Trachtenberg. Bad Robot isn't playing by the rules. More of this, please. This movie hit peak itself so fast that it was hard to tell how much of the pushback on the film was real versus just normal, everyday popularity fatigue. What nudged it onto the list for me is the exact reason the pushback on the film exists. In short, a lot of hate people have for this movie is for what it just isn't. Of articles I've read, a lot of the sentiment about this film is that it is essentially Hollywood patting itself on the back while coldly exploiting the polished memories of Hollywood's golden age. And sure, yeah, okay, but that's really only drilling halfway down. La La Land, unsurprisingly, is a film about dreams, or more directly, daydreams. Hell, the film begins with one long daydream as hundreds of people in cars get out and dance in the middle of LA's historically record-setting awful traffic. Ethos and form. I'd rather be anywhere else, but I'm achieving my dreams and that's good enough. Or you can look at this movie in a different way, insofar that we watched a romance bloom on the promise of achieving their dreams. But their relationship stands in perpetual contra to their dreams. They are simply too in love to follow their dreams when they're around each other. That's why there weren't even any songs in the middle. This movie is toilet food, is such a misplaced, though understandable, criticism of the movie. The musical aspect goes away because the characters are no longer daydreaming. They literally love each other too much to achieve their dreams. 1, that's fucked up. And 2, maybe the film is wearing old Hollywood's glitzy, glamorous clothing to lull you into dropping your defenses so it can land a sobering message. Dreams take hard-ass work. Be prepared to lose something to get them. I mean, Baby Goose had to learn how to do some pretty mean piano to do this movie. That is a meaningful sacrifice for an actor because no one in this film got to phone it in. They all had to train and work and practice and practice and practice to put together something that on the surface appears effortless. In a lot of ways, it's utilizing the hand-polished veneer of the golden age of Hollywood to sell you the pragmatic reality that following your dreams in Hollywood can have devastating effects on your normal life. And I think that is an accomplishment worth celebration. Damien Chazelle came out of nowhere with Whiplash, which he wrote and directed just like La La Land, and pulled a physical performance out of Miles Teller so jaw-dropping that I don't think anyone knew he had that in him. And here's a but did you know kicker to punctuate the whole thing.
But did you know?
Before Damien Chazelle went off to create Whiplash, he was hired to work with Josh Campbell and Matt Stukin on their screenplay, The Cellar. The Cellar, by the way, was 10 Cloverfield Lane, which he has a writing credit on, and I imagine much of his input is still on display in that film. Damien writes characters who will stop at nothing to achieve their dreams and goals, usually to their own excruciating detriment. Also, he wrote Grand Piano, so I think it's pretty safe to assume that Damien Chazelle is a voice in Hollywood. I will be waiting on bated breath to see what he does next. Good to be back. Hello, 2017. I hope you weren't missing me too badly. I needed a bit of a break to produce my Movies and Mikey live show at PAX South, but I am ready to hit the ground running. Per usual, please follow me on Twitter to get the latest news about the show or, just to interact with me. And please hit the like button because everyone else tells their audience to do that with unimpeachable regularity. It's got to do something, right? But a thing that I actually know has value is subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. I just got back from PAX South with Chris Straub, and we have some pretty killer ideas for programming on the channel this year. Subscribe. It helps a lot. Okay, and the thing you're actually waiting for is probably the voting, and it's been a while since we've had a proper simple vote, so here you go. The first full breakdown of 2017 will be either Creed, a film by Ryan Coogler, Independence Day, Resurgence, a film by A Toilet. Let's not do that, nope. The real next movie is Scream, a film by Wes Craven, and Princess Mononoke, a film by Hayao Miyazaki. Be sure to get your votes in the comments within, let's say, 8 days, give or take. This isn't a real scientific process. Hello, 2017. We got a lot to talk about. Keep your heads high, friends.